First of all, I'd like to start about my journey, how I began. I was 15 years of age when I was fortunate enough to meet His Holiness Dalai Lama. I asked him a question, and the question was, where do I find Buddha? And he said to me was, each time there's a smile on someone's face, and you are the reason for that smile. For that fraction of moment when that person is smiling, you become Buddha. Now, I've been asked to talk about menstrual hygiene, but let me begin as to from where this began and from where it came to my mind to start working on menstrual hygiene management. I was a very small little child when I heard about this term called women empowerment. I went up to my mother and told her, Mom, I'm going to empower you one day. Let me grow up. To that, she did not respond, but what she did was she tied bricks on my waist and said, go take 20 rounds of the garden. And I thought this was some kind of punishment that she was giving me. And I asked to her, I said, Mom, why are you punishing me for something so beautiful that I wanted to share with you? I could not take those 20 rounds and I fell down. And I went up to her and I said, why are you punishing me again by doing this? And she said to me was that I kept you in my womb for 9 months. You tore me apart when you came out of me. What makes you think that you can empower me? And that day, I forgot about empowering someone. So all that we can do is spread smiles. Now, from there, the definition of women empowerment was very clear in my mind. But when I was working in the sector of social work, I began from the age of 14. And as a volunteer, I learned and I saw so many things. Beyond that, when I went to the villages and slums that I was in, I saw there were so many problems that people were dealing with, particularly menstrual hygiene. Now, in 2014, when we were all talking about Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, that's when I realized that this is such an important topic. I was yelling and shouting, and even today, it remains the same. Though there has been a shift in the society where people have started talking about it, but there's a huge gap between the grassroots reality and what we think the reality is. There are 5 points on which the Humans for Humanity's pilot project, WASH project, that runs. WASH stands for Women Sanitation Hygiene. The very first point is awareness. To point number 2 is nutrition. The third point is about bringing them together in a circle, which we call the listening circle. The listening circle is a platform where they come and they share their problems, and we also always send them back with a solution. The fourth point is as to how we're dealing with this problem by giving a solution to them. The solution is that we distribute free sanitary napkins, but that's not it, because I can distribute sanitary napkins to someone for 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. But at the end of the day, they have to be self-empowered. They have to be self-sustaining. And that's why in the fifth point, we teach them how to make their own sanitary pads at home. And this has helped a lot. One day when I was working in Rajasthan, a 54-year-old woman asked me a question. She said, do you also bleed? And I was surprised when she asked me a question. I had a smile on my face and I had to explain to her as to how this works. And I said, how come you don't know you're married? How come you don't know that your husband does not bleed? She said, the way I've been hiding it, probably he also hides from me. Now that is a situation that we're dealing with today. And I think it is very, very important to deal with menstrual hygiene management because it is taking lives of people. When I say people, I also include the transgender community. So we have to also include them in this process. And I talk about both the genders, women and the transgenders that bleed. Let me tell you about an instance from another project from Delhi. This place is called Katputli community. This community was the world's biggest street artist community. And I cannot tell you how beautiful this village was at one point of time, which has now been demolished, and they're living out of small little, cubicles in the transit camp. But each time when I visit these places, what I see is a big smile on their faces. Even though they're living in a cubicle with 5 to 6 people, with no food, with no money, with no employment, with no house. Despite of that, one thing that has been constant is a smile on their face. And each time when I go there, it brings a smile to my face as well. Now, people often tell me that you do social work and, this is such a great job and you're doing great things, etc., etc. But I always believe that this is being very, very selfish. When I do social work, it brings me happiness. And that's what we must do. As I told you at the beginning of the talk, each time there's a smile on someone's face, you become Buddha. So you have to spread smiles in your own way. And that doesn't mean that you have to do something very special. Maybe as the host said, that even if you smile at someone, they smile back at you. So this is the least that you can do, spread smiles. And I believe everything that goes wrong in our society goes wrong because we ignore it at some point of time. And I think we should not ignore anything, be it good or bad. We should always address, promote the good and stop the bad. And I think that's the way to lead the life. Well, we work in the remote areas, we work in the villages and slums, even in the urban sector or the rural setup. It's the same project that's been running in both the areas. Now, as I told you, the very first thing that we do is awareness. Because it's very, very important for them to understand as to what periods is, because they have been thinking it's a disease, they have been thinking it's a curse, and they do not have access to sanitary napkins. They do not know how to keep themselves clean. A lot of women, even today, they use ash, sand, dry leaves, rugs, anything and everything that can absorb the liquid is being used by women on the days of periods. You pick up a dirty cloth to clean something, and that's what a lot of women do in the villages even today. They end up using a dirty cloth while they're bleeding because they think it's a dirty process. So making them aware about the process, that it's not a dirty process, it's a cleansing process. You're cleaning your body, and using a clean cloth would be much better than using anything else. I still say that sanitary napkins available in the market today, some of them are plastic sanitary napkins, some of them are kept sanitary napkins with chemicals. I think this is very important, be it the slum, village, or urban city. All women, all menstruators should understand that using the right product is very, very important. And a lot of women have been using the cloth when we talk about the rural communities. And it is wonderful that they use that cloth, but the clean cloth is the most important thing. You must have seen this very common thing. Each time you go to a village or a slum or even houses in the city, you will see the clothes of men always hanging outside, even underwears for that matter. But women will always cover their clothes with towels, with petticoats, with saris, and they will never sun dry their undergarments. They will never sun dry the cloth that they're using. And it is always left in the bathroom covered with something. And some people don't even have the bathroom in the villages, so they just keep it in the room wherever they can, and they always cover it. Leaving a wet cloth is inviting problems, is inviting germs, is inviting bacteria, and that can lead to multiple diseases and multiple problems that women deal with. The communities that we work with, and I mentioned earlier, there's a community called Katputli community. Now, this specific community did not even have the resources to cook food. The hygiene sector, the transit camp that they live in is not hygienic at all. But visiting that place made me understand how worst things can go. But still, they're living there. It's their house. They try to keep their surroundings clean. And this is how they've been dealing with life. If you don't mind, I would like to share a story of Bhagwan Das and Sharbati, which they come from the same village. Of course, it is off the topic. It is not about the menstruation project, but it is something that just came up to my mind. And I think it's very important for you to understand and listen to their story as well. Bhagwan Das is an award-winning artist who used to play with the Katputlis, with the puppets. And he has represented India in about 97 countries. But in Hindi, he said to me, जब मैं रात को सोता हूं तो मुझे बहुत दर्द होता है और आपको वो मेरी बात कभी समझ में नहीं आएगी. So I insisted him that he shares with me what problems that he deals with. And he said, रात को जब मैं चारपाई पर लेटता हूं तो मुझे चूहे आके काटते हैं. And जब वो चूहे आके काटते हैं तो बहुत दर्द होता है. So of course it is very painful to hear something like that, but What he meant was he's not the physical pain. He said, दर्द इस चीज का नहीं होता है कि वो आके काटते हैं, दर्द इस चीज का होता है कि मैं उनको हटा नहीं पाता, because he's paralyzed. And he says, such is the condition of our country, because people are aware about the problems, they're aware about the solutions, but they're paralyzed. They don't want to do anything. So I think we must come out of that state of paralysis and act every day, do our bit, and do everything that we can do. Bhagwan Das is paralyzed physically, but a lot of people in our country are paralyzed because they don't want to think, they don't want to do anything. They just want to do what they think is beneficial only for themselves. And I think it's time not to become selfish. And as I said, bringing happiness will bring you happiness. So if you keep others happy, they will keep you happy. And that's the way of life, and that's the way of living. Well, a very common thing that you must have heard is something that is often asked to me as well. That you will go to schools, colleges, you'll talk to women, and they'll always say that men never understand. Men never understand us. Men never understand what we are going through. Our husband, our father sometimes don't understand. And it is because a child from the very beginning, if he's a male child, is always excluded from this conversation. It's always said that this is a woman's thing and a boy should not talk about it. A boy should not listen about it. A boy should not be in the same room if you're talking about periods. Hence, this little boy never gets to know about menstruation. The second step is when he goes to school. Now, you are at a school as well, and school is a representation of the society that we live in. Where do the teachers come from? They also come from the same school, from the same society. Now, in many schools, what happens is the teachers are also a little hesitant talking about menstruation. Hence, they just flip through the pages, or they just go ahead without explaining much about menstruation. The little boy still does not know what menstruation is. He grows up, maybe he goes to college, he has a girlfriend, and the girlfriend says, you never understand me. But she never tries to explain to him what she's dealing with. She never tries to explain to him what menstruation is, what periods is. But she always says that my boyfriend never understands what he's going through. And then eventually, probably if he gets married and if he becomes a father, he still does not know what menstruation is. So I think it is very important to include men in this conversation so that they can understand, they can support, and they can be with you. And of course, we cannot menstruate, we cannot bleed, and we cannot experience it. But being with the women that we have around us, we can understand this process and also be a part of it. Other than that, there are many, many other taboos, one of which I shared. A woman did not even know that men do not bleed. And there are many such things there. It's often said that you're not supposed to go to the kitchen, you're not supposed to go out of your houses. In fact, there was an instance where in Uttarakhand, in a village, there was a menstrual hut being prepared, and the fund had come from an IS officer. This was an educated IS officer who had allocated funds to make a menstrual room outside the village where women would go when they're bleeding. And 3 women in this hut died. There are many such instances that I can share with you from various parts of the country where women have been excluded. Women have not been a part of, they're not allowed to stay in their houses. There are women who are left in the cow sheds just because they believe that they're dirty, they're filthy, they're untouchable. But I think it is very important to understand that it's not dirty, it's not filthy, it's not the state of untouchability. It's the state of purification, and the world would not move ahead if a woman would not bleed. And I think that is what we make people understand. In fact, one of the instances that I'd like to share from Jaipur, from Jawahar Basti, is where we made achar, because it's often said that don't go to the kitchen. Now, this was the state when they were joint families, when they were huge families, and a woman who was menstruating would go take rest, but the other women will take care of the household. But at the same time, today you see that there are no joint families anymore, or very few left. Most people live in nuclear families, and in these nuclear families, I think it becomes very difficult for a woman or a man living all by themselves. So if there's a couple who's living together, they have to maintain the work between both of them. They have to distribute the work between both of them. And I think my mother, even though she was menstruating, she never sent me to a school hungry. She did not have an excuse saying, "I'm menstruating today and I won't give you food." She gave me food each day, no matter what happened. And I think it's very important to understand that in today's day and time, the old taboos, the age old taboos have to be busted. They have to be excluded and not made a part of the society, because we have to bring the change. And it is changing, I believe. Thank you so much for having me and inviting me at this platform. Keep spreading the smiles, keep spreading the happiness. Thank you so much.